What's up, guys? Welcome to an editing episode. So I get a lot of questions on cropping. Why should you crop? Do you crop? How much do you crop? When should I crop? How much is too much cropping? So I do want to touch on some subjective, artistic, kind of creative reasons why you might want to crop and that kind of stuff. But first, I have a rule for cropping, and that supersedes anything for me personally. So I've mentioned this in a few other videos, but I've had some comments on it lately. I think in my last one I talked about it, but I may have confused people because I didn't say what the rule was. So let's jump into the computer and I'll show you my rule for cropping and how that works for me. And then we'll talk about like how I use cropping and how it can be a really underestimated and powerful tool. All right, so let's start with this image to show you my cropping rule. So my cropping rule is I will always, if I want to or need to, I will crop until I get 2160 pixels on the vertical edge. So you can see right here when I'm dragging that it shows the width and height in pixels. So I use that to determine how much I want to crop. So you can see the height right now, it says 4941 pixels. So we got a lot to work with. So now it says 4142. And this is kind of as much as I would want to crop for this image if I just really want to isolate. Like let's say I don't want to clone this out. So let's say I'll just crop like super tight, just even a little there. Wow, that's pushing it. Okay, I might still fix the neck over there, but you can see the final crop is 3973 or something like that. So this is more, there's still more than 2160. Why do I do 2160? Because for me, that will, anything on the long edge that's 2160 will display natively at 100% on a 4K screen. So if you're watching this on a laptop or TV, or if your phone has 4K or whatever, 2160 is enough to natively show that without it looking yucky. So we can come in here to image size. So this is another way to sharpen your image and to down-res it to get a little more, to get it to where I want. So it's 3973, so I'm going to change it to 2160, and then I'm going to hit OK. So this doesn't matter what ratio you're in because I go off the vertical edge, no matter if it's landscape or if it's, here you can see I've got it in 4:5 because that's what social media likes, like Instagram, anything on your phone, Facebook, they all like 4:5 the most. But if you had it in something else, that's fine. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the vertical edge. I don't go below 2160. All right, so let's take a look at this wider shot here. All right, so before we get into talking about the artsy stuff real quick, let me just show you how this will look as a crop. So this is the raw shot, full size. I'm going to go ahead and bring it in nice and tight. So now we're on a landscape orientation, and I'm looking at the height down there on my crop tool, 3493. So I still got plenty of room to work with. So that means I'm going to bring it in a lot tighter. 2441. 2331. I can almost get this guy out of it. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. When I do crop, you got to think about leaving room to breathe around the edges. I don't want anything super close, but I do want like a nice tight portrait of this guy. So I would do something like that, and then I would just clean this guy out. Okay, so a little bit of cleaning up, and there it is. There's my final super cropped. I did resharpen it, but that's how I do it. So this is, if we come in here to the image size, we can look, I still have room. So I didn't even go to my 2160. So I can go ahead and resize that. That's my 2160. I'll go ahead and show you my saving technique too, real quick. Let's do it on this one so that you can see the size difference. Okay, so this is 2160. I've resized it. So I'm gonna do save as, and I'm gonna come in here to JPEG, and I'm gonna label this one with an SM after it and call it for small or social media, whatever you wanna call it. That's just so I know that that's to 2161. Then after I save it, I'm going to go in here because that's the last thing that I do. And then I do Control Z and undo the resizing. So now if we look at the size, it's back to where I cropped it, 3973. So this would be the higher resolution image. So I could go ahead and go back into JPEG and save that and title it full, or FR, full res or whatever, or just leave it like that. That way I know this is the larger one. So if someone needs a bigger size, like a client, or if I want to print or something like that, then there it is. And then after that, I go ahead and I save the PSD so that I can come back and change edits or crop or whatever, undo crops if I need to. Because that's the powerful thing about saving the PSDs. If I hit my C button and I come in here, now I can bring it back out and I can do a different ratio of cropping. Like maybe I want this to be full and I want it, something like that. And I want to show different elements or a different part of the story with the crop. So that's my rule for cropping. That's the technical aspect of it. Now let's talk about a little more of the subjective and artistic stuff for what I think about when I crop, and maybe give you some ideas for some things. Okay, so here's an image that I got recently, and I love it. I love the details of the feather, the light. I wish he was turned a little bit more towards me, but can't really direct the birds. I love the nice out of focus background. It's blurry, it's smooth, nothing distracting, beautiful, lots of detail here. So if we look at the image size, we'll notice that this is 2203, so it's still within my 2160. But let's take a look at where this image came from. So here's the wider version of this image, and I really like this a lot too, because this is the artistic part, this is the storytelling part. So rather than just see the close-up, now I've got him in context, and I've got the crane coming in, beautiful light. I've got these other cranes, so it puts size and action into play there, so you can really see what's going on with him. But we're not done yet. This was the original, and so you can see a lot more cranes. You can see some water in the background. You can kind of barely see some mountains. You can see all this fall colors, beautiful foliage and all that stuff, warm sun. This is like the very first rays of sunrise. So this was the raw. This was the first crop, and then this was the final crop. And this is where I want to talk about the subjective part or the artistic part or whatever, is that like what I think about is that I don't think about just one shot. Like I just got 3 images from one, and that's because of cropping. And I didn't compromise the integrity of the image, because even this one here, cropping down to 2160, that's still big enough to print a decent size. But not only that, there's still plenty of detail there. Everything looks great, but I've got 3 images now, and if I post this on social media, I can post all 3 of them so that you can really get the context, but you can see each like maybe layer of the image or each layer of the story. I think I would prefer maybe that descriptor there. So that's the kind of stuff I think about when I'm cropping. I think, I'll show you another example of that is similar. All right, so let's take a look at this northern harrier. They're very hard for me to photograph. These are very awesome birds. They're one of my favorite hawks. What I like to do with these is, rather than show like a straight up just in-flight shot on a blue background, sky, whatever, I like to put it in a little context. So right here we've got this out of focus foreground, which is like these giant reeds, or I think it was actually like a field of like corn and maize and stuff. And then behind it, it's not sky, so this is a mountain, and we're just really zoomed in here. So it's still not just the bird, it's a bird with a little bit of a context. The northern harriers used to be called marsh hawks, and so they're hunters, and they hunt in these fields, and it's really kind of cool to show this behavior. So we can back it out a little bit and say, well, this is a little more context, this is what I cropped it from. And now you've got the actual mountain, so you can see there's a mountain. Now you can see the field even more. And then you can still see the bird's big enough that you can still see really what's going on with him, that he's hunting or that he's looking, that kind of thing. He's big enough to identify. So, if you know your birds, then you could identify this. But that's not where I shot that from. I shot that from this. So this is uncropped, and this was at like 700 millimeters with my 500 with a 1.4 on there. So he was very far away. But I still like this too, because this does show context, and putting a small animal into a big scene can help tell the story. So you've got these beautiful mountains, you've definitely got the field, and now you're starting to see the size difference here and see like, wow, this big bird looks kind of small in this scene. So I've got these 3 shots to really help me tell that story. And obviously, if I'm going to post something on Instagram, then I'll post the croppiest of the cropping first because everyone likes to see that and punch in so that you can really understand what it is. And then I'll post this one second and then this one third on a carousel. And just it'll really help show that story of, hey, this is a harrier. Hey, he's hunting. Hey, he's really cool. Actually, this is a she. And then, hey, here she is in her environment. And then, hey, she's really small in her environment. It gives you this like feeling of the trials that she has to go through just to find a meal. You know, all of that kind of displayed in this story. At least that's my hope anyways. Okay, so let me show you one with a landscape instead of just wildlife. Okay, so here's a scene that I shot in Scotland on my workshop. Shameless plug, if you want to join me here in Scotland on this exact private beach in next May 2025, I have 2 spots left. So you can check out my website for that. Anyways, okay, so awesome beach in Scotland, beautiful scene. I like the wide scene and I kept it and I edited it. However, I did do a focus stack because this stuff here and this stuff here, I wanted them all in focus. But I really, really wanted to crop this. And so this is what I ended up cropping it to. So you can see here, I've downsized it to 2160. And I think this cleans it up because there was a rainbow, there was a little bit of sunrise. This was first light, by the way. This was like sunrise, not sunset. So the sun had just come up over and we're getting the first light and we've got this beautiful foxglove lit up. We've got the rainbow. And in the wide version, you can see it, but you tend to lose it a little bit. But you do get, I like the way that it wraps around here. So that's really nice. So that's why I wanted both. But I don't like things like this, which I could probably clean up with a really simple crop. And like, look at that. Boom, so now that's fixed. But I really like this vertical shot. And I think it does a great job of emphasizing all 3 elements. So I wanted the foxglove here and this lit up foreground. I wanted this lit up peak here in this middle of this little sea stack. And then I wanted to show this beautiful coastline with that rainbow that just was perfect over that sea stack. And that's just not something that is as elucidated in the wider shot. So you could also say, well, you could just zoom in if you have a zoom, which I did have a zoom on. I think I shot this with a 16-35. I don't think 30, I think this was cropped to a little more than what a 35 would have been. However, the other reason that I did it is because I did a focus stack at 16 millimeter and then I blended them in Photoshop together and then cropped in after the fact. So now you'll notice that this stuff here is a lot sharper than in here because that's the focus stacking. So I focused 3 shots, you know, one here on the foxglove, one here on this guy, and then one here back there. And the result is this, what I think, very lovely image. All right, so let me go over one more example of a more maybe ordinary or I don't know. This is a ruby crowned kinglet. They're an amazing bird. They're very common, but they're very hard to get photos of, for me at least. This background is obviously just atrocious. So you could show, again, small bird, large frame, and just kind of show it in its place, but this image isn't doing it for me. So I want to crop this, and I probably want to crop it a lot. And because of the way his tail is, I want to go vertical, so I want to go 4x5. And I was full res. I wasn't in crop mode in the camera, so that means I've got more room to play with. So I'm just going to go ahead and crop it all the way down to what my maximum would be. All right, 21. That was 2165. It's kind of hard to drag it perfectly, so you can just come in here and then if you want to be super meticulous about it. Okay, so what you'll notice is that effectively brought the background a lot closer. That got rid of a lot of the distracting stuff. However, the background is still kind of yucky. So let's take a look real quick. I'll just show you. I know this is like past the purview of the video here, but since you're still here. All right, so first thing I did, let's zoom in here so you can see. And look, I could still crop this more if I wanted to. There's just a lot of good detail here. But the first thing I did was I sharpened the image. I use Luminar Neo for sharpening, for my AI sharpening. Maybe that's another video. It doesn't matter what you use. If you have Topaz or Luminar or DxO or whatever. So that's the first thing I did was I sharpened it. And then the next thing I did was took it back into Camera Raw and just brightened it up a little bit. So one way to get rid of a lot of those distractions is to brighten it up. See, so now when it's not so contrasty, it does two things. It gets rid of the distractions and it helps separate my subject a little bit more. So that's like making you feel that separation even more. And then the last thing I did was, again, just a tiny bit of global curves there and brightening up the subject. If you brighten or lower the background and not the subject, there's a point at which that can become too much. So there. It's not the bestest of the best shots in the whole wide world, but I think I did the best with the background that I was given. And when it comes to these little guys, I just, they're so hard to shoot. This isn't baited. This isn't at a feeder. This isn't the wild in the middle of nowhere. So I take what I can get. All right, so that's my cropping rule, 2160 on the vertical edge. I don't always crop to that, as you've seen, but I allow myself to crop up to that that's like my safety, net. And then hopefully those other examples kind of give you a little insight into how I think when I shoot. I say this a lot of videos, but I can't stress it enough. The more you learn how to edit and the more that you do edit, the better that will help you in the field for when you're composing your images. So maybe that'll give you some food for thought, and just, it's okay to crop. It's okay to use crop mode. It's okay to crop. Test it out, try it, see what you like, see what kind of resolution you're getting, see what kind of detail you're happy with. That's the most important thing. Don't let us other, weird rando internet peoples tell you what you should or should be doing. Like, yeah, people like me on YouTube, like, we know some stuff. Like, I'm here for a reason. I'm trying to help you guys. But we're not you. You're not us. Like, we all have different reasons. So don't take anything that anyone says on here as like the word, or like so-and-so said, I have to do this. And this guy said you can never use crop mode. And this other guy, me, Brent, I'm telling you, you can use crop mode. Stuff like that. Everything is not black and white. Everything is not 0 to 100. There's a lot of room, and you just got to figure out where on that spectrum you're comfortable with. Personally, I'm very comfortable with cropping the absolute crap out of something if it gets me the story and the image that I want to tell and want to show. But I do have my limits, and I have shown those limits to you. So maybe that will help you with some guidance for your own photography. The biggest key over all of this stuff is to shoot as much as possible and to edit as much as possible. As long as you're doing those two things, you're going to continue to grow, and you're going to continue to understand what you want out of an image. All right, well, I hope that helps. If you're still here, I really appreciate it. Hit that like button for me. That's the best thing you can do for the channel. Throw me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about cropping. If you like that kind of stuff and you're picking up what I'm putting down, you can check out the channel memberships down below. I've got extra tutorials on there, extra behind the scenes videos, all kinds of stuff like that. If you want to learn one-on-one, you can join me in the Bosque. I've got stuff until February. And then in Scotland, all of my workshops, we cover editing and post-processing and, train of thought, gear specifics, the works. If you want to learn all that kind of stuff with me out in the field in a really cool place, and check out the workshop link down below. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.